They say some places aren't haunted by ghosts, but by memories that refuse to fade. When wildlife researcher Daniel Harris got lost in the Oregon woods, he thought he'd found shelter in an old cabin. What he found instead was a place that watches and remembers. This is the true story of the cabin that waited, and why no one who enters ever truly leaves. In the beginning of the story, Daniel Harris is introduced as a wildlife researcher traveling deep into the forests of northern Oregon to photograph owls. He's not looking for danger, he's simply doing his job. This ordinary setup is important because it makes what happens later feel more believable and disturbing. After a few days in the woods, Daniel begins to lose his sense of direction. His GPS starts failing, the battery drains unusually fast, and all the trails begin to look the same. This builds a slow feeling of isolation, a reminder that in nature, even small problems can turn deadly when you're alone. He keeps walking, hoping to find the main road, but instead discovers an old logging path that leads him deeper into the forest. The air grows colder, the fog thickens, and everything becomes unnaturally quiet. Then, through the mist, he spots a small, weathered cabin. It looks ancient, covered in vines, the door hanging half open like someone left in a hurry. Daniel calls out, expecting maybe a hunter or another hiker, but there's no answer. The forest doesn't respond either, not even birds. It's completely silent, as if the world itself is holding its breath. With night coming fast and no idea where he is, Daniel faces a simple, logical choice: risk freezing outside, or take shelter in the abandoned cabin. He decides to step inside, telling himself it's just for one night. What he doesn't realize is that the moment he crosses that threshold, he's already entered the cabin's trap, a place that's been waiting for someone like him to come along. This first part sets the foundation for everything. It makes Daniel's decision understandable while showing how easily someone can stumble into horror by trying to do the sensible thing. It's not a reckless act or curiosity that brings him there, it's desperation and survival. And that's what makes the situation far more terrifying. When Daniel steps inside the cabin, the first thing he notices is how strange it feels. From the outside, it looked abandoned, old, covered in moss, and falling apart. But inside, it's unexpectedly neat. There's almost no dust, no cobwebs, and the air doesn't smell as stale as it should. It feels like someone has been there recently, cleaning or maintaining it, even though there's no sign of anyone around. That small detail immediately creates unease. The cabin has only a few things inside: a table, a single wooden chair, and an old oil lamp on the table. Everything else is bare. The emptiness makes the space feel unnatural, as if it's been arranged that way deliberately. While setting up to rest, Daniel's attention catches on something hanging on the wall, a framed photograph. The photo shows a man standing in the same cabin, next to that same table and chair. It's clear that the picture was taken from the same spot where Daniel is now standing, which already feels eerie. But what disturbs him most is that the man's face is turned away, blurred beyond recognition. It doesn't look like an accident, it looks as though the face has been deliberately distorted or erased. Beneath the photo, Daniel notices a message scratched into the frame. It reads, "Do not look out the window after dark." It's written roughly, like someone carved it in a hurry. The warning feels personal, desperate, the kind of message left by someone who knew what was coming. But Daniel doesn't take it seriously. He assumes it's just a weird joke, maybe something left behind by a hunter or camper to scare visitors. As he gets ready to sleep, something catches his eye near the door: faint footprints in the dust. They don't match his shoes. They look recent, as though someone had been standing inside not long before he arrived. That's the moment when a quiet sense of dread starts to build. The cabin might not be empty after all. By the end of this part, the story shifts from strange to sinister. The cabin feels alive in some way, too clean, too preserved, and filled with details that don't make sense. The photograph, the warning, and the fresh footprints all suggest that Daniel isn't just lost in the woods anymore. He's stepped into a place that remembers people, and something inside it has started to notice him. That night, after trying to rest, Daniel hears a faint, deliberate knock at the cabin window, 3 slow taps. At first, he tells himself it must be the wind or maybe a tree branch. But the sound is too precise, too controlled. The knocking repeats, and then shifts to another side of the cabin, like something moving just outside. That's when he remembers the warning carved into the photograph's frame: do not look out the window after dark. He freezes. The rule suddenly feels real. The knocking continues, moving around the walls, then to the back of the cabin. It's as if someone is circling the building, testing it, trying to see if he'll react. This moment shows that whatever is out there isn't random or animal, it's aware of him. It knows he's inside and is waiting for him to look, to acknowledge it. Then comes a voice, quiet and almost human. It's cold out here. The voice doesn't sound angry, it sounds sad, almost pleading. That's what makes it worse. It's trying to make Daniel feel sorry for it, to open the window, to talk. It's tempting him to break the rule. The thing outside doesn't try to force its way in, it waits for an invitation. This reveals one of the story's hidden truths: whatever haunts the cabin can't enter unless it's seen or acknowledged. Daniel's instincts take over. He turns off the lamp, crouches in the dark, and doesn't move. The only sound left is the soft creaking of the cabin's old wood. The knocking stops for a few minutes, then starts again, slower this time, patient, almost playful. It feels like the presence outside is testing his fear, enjoying his silence. Eventually, after what feels like hours, the noises fade. No more knocks. No more whispers. The forest outside becomes dead silent again. Daniel stays awake until dawn, too afraid to sleep, gripping his camera in the dark like a weapon even though he knows it won't help. This part of the story is where the haunting becomes real. The knocking and the whisper prove that there is something intelligent outside the cabin. It doesn't need to break in, it only needs to be noticed. The rule about not looking out the window suddenly makes perfect sense. Once someone sees it, it becomes real to them. Daniel survives the night only because he resists curiosity. But now, the cabin, and whatever watches it, knows he's aware of it. From this moment on, he's marked. When daylight finally breaks, Daniel feels relief, but it doesn't last long. The forest around the cabin is completely still. No birds, no wind, not even the usual rustling of leaves. That kind of silence in nature is unnatural. It tells him that something is deeply wrong, like the world around the cabin isn't behaving the way it should. It's as if the entire area has been drained of life or placed under some kind of invisible control. He steps outside and looks around for signs of whatever was knocking during the night. On the ground, he sees the same footprints from before, but this time he notices something horrifying. They don't lead away into the trees. They led underneath the cabin. This detail changes everything. It means the thing that circled the cabin didn't disappear into the woods. It's been below him the entire time, possibly crawling under the floorboards as he tried to sleep. That realization adds a new layer of fear because it means the cabin isn't just haunted, it's connected to whatever lives beneath it. Before leaving, Daniel looks around one last time and finds something he hadn't noticed before: a small tape recorder sitting near the fireplace. It's covered in dust but still works when he presses play. From it comes the weak, trembling voice of a man. The man sounds terrified and exhausted, as though he's recording his final moments. The message says, "If you found this, you saw the photo." It watches through faces. Don't look at it too long. Don't stay when it knocks. It's waiting for a new one. The recording confirms Daniel's worst fear. He's not the first person to find this cabin. Someone else has gone through the same thing before him. The line, "It watches through faces," explains the strange photograph from earlier, the one with the blurred man. That photo isn't just decoration, it's a kind of trap or vessel. The face in it belongs to whoever last stayed in the cabin, and over time, the entity that controls the cabin uses that image to watch and claim the next person. The photo isn't just showing the past, it's alive in some way, and it's connected to the curse. When Daniel turns to look at the photo again, he realizes something impossible has happened. The face in the picture, which had been turned away before, is now facing forward, looking directly toward him. The photo has changed. This moment reveals that the entity has chosen him as its next victim. The act of seeing the photograph again, after hearing the recording, completes the connection. The cabin now recognizes him, just as it once recognized the man before. This is when Daniel understands that he has to leave immediately. The cabin isn't a normal place, it's a kind of supernatural snare that lures people in and keeps a piece of them forever. The photo, the silence, the footprints, and the knocking all serve one purpose: to mark the next person who will be trapped. By looking at the photograph, Daniel has already crossed a line. The cabin has him in its memory now, and if he stays any longer, he'll become the next face on the wall. This chapter finally explains how the haunting works. The cabin doesn't kill outright, it replaces. Each person who enters becomes part of its story. The entity feeds on their fear and identity, transferring itself from one person to the next through the image on the wall. By running, Daniel saves his body, but the story hints that the cabin has already taken something much deeper: his place in its endless cycle. Daniel runs through the forest as fast as he can, desperate to get away from the cabin. The fog seems thicker than before, wrapping around the trees like smoke, and no matter which direction he turns, the woods all look the same. He keeps glancing behind him, half expecting to see someone, or something, following. But there's nothing, just silence and the distant creak of the trees. As he runs, his camera bangs against his chest, and in a moment of panic, he decides to use it as proof. If anyone ever finds him, he wants them to know what he saw. He raises the camera and snaps a picture of the cabin from a distance, the last image before he disappears into the fog. When he looks at the screen, his heart sinks. The photo doesn't show the cabin the way it should. Instead, it's completely dark, like the lens captured a shadow swallowing the entire building. In the corner of the image, though, there's a faint shape, the outline of a man standing in the doorway, staring directly at him. Daniel doesn't stop running until he finally finds a dirt road. His sense of direction returns, as if the forest itself is letting him go. Eventually, he stumbles into a ranger station. The ranger finds him pale, shaking, and covered in scratches. Daniel tries to explain what happened, but the story sounds impossible. The ranger assumes he's been lost too long, maybe hallucinating. Still, Daniel insists someone else is out there, that he heard a voice, saw a man's shape. The ranger sends a search team the next morning to investigate the area he described. When they reach the clearing, they find the cabin, but it looks different. The door is missing, and everything inside has decayed far more than Daniel remembers. The photograph on the wall is still there, but now the face in the frame isn't blurred anymore. It's clear. It's Daniel's. His same jacket, his same eyes, looking straight ahead. The rangers, not knowing his story in detail, think it's just an eerie coincidence, but to anyone who's seen what he has, it means the cabin has claimed another. Back at home, Daniel tries to move on. He avoids the woods completely. He doesn't talk about the cabin again. But months later, while organizing his research photos on his computer, he notices something chilling. Every picture he took after leaving the cabin, even ones in completely different locations, has the same strange blur in the background. Sometimes it's faint, sometimes clearer, but it's always there, a dark shape standing just behind him, watching. It's the same shadow he saw in the photo of the cabin. The same one that had waited outside his window. He deletes the photos, but the blur keeps reappearing in new ones, even when he uses different cameras. It's as if the thing from the cabin followed him, not in body, but in image. Just like the photograph in the cabin, it now uses his pictures as its reflection, keeping itself alive through whatever he captures. In the end, Daniel disappears one night. His car is found parked on a dirt trail miles from any town, his camera sitting on the passenger seat. The last photo taken shows a familiar cabin, perfectly centered in the frame, its door open, a faint light glowing inside, as if waiting for someone to come home. This final chapter reveals that Daniel never really escaped. The cabin's curse wasn't confined to its walls. It traveled through sight, through memory, through the act of being captured. Just as the man before him became part of the photograph, Daniel has become part of the cabin's story. And somewhere, deep in the woods, the cabin still stands, waiting for the next lost traveler to see it and start the cycle again. They never found Daniel, only his camera, and one last photo of the cabin, glowing faintly in the dark. Some say it's still there, waiting for the next lost soul to step inside. If you ever see it, don't look out the window after dark.